I would like to introduce another Carey School alumni, Paul Olsen, in his Panther Points of Pride video.
Hello, I'm Paul Olsen. I graduated in '57. I lived in a little white house. No, maybe it wasn't white, I'm colorblind, on the east side of the cheese factory. The elementary was interesting. We had a wood stove, and you could always smell. Everybody brought their lunch in a sack, and you walked by a room that everybody put their lunch in. It was on the opposite side from the cloak room. As we got older, we played marbles, and the teachers played marbles with us. It depended on, there was different kinds of marbles. You either played out of a ring or a bigger one, or you lagged for pots. It just different ways. It was marbles. It was inexpensive, so you didn't have to have anything fancy. If we wanted the afternoon off, if we flushed all the toilets at the same time, the girls upstairs, the guys downstairs, it'd waterlog the pump, and we could get out by 2:30. In order to go out to ag, you could either go down the stairs, or you could go into the typing room and jump out of the window, and you could get back to the ag, first one back to ag. The band teacher was a teacher in the beginning, and then he went on a mission. And while he was in Tonga, he got me to writing to a girl over there. I even remember her name, and that's been a long time ago. We enjoyed music, the band and the chorus, and we did quite well. Many times embarrassing the music teacher, but we all did well, and we really enjoyed it. I remember all of the teachers that we had, each one of them for their own special deal. We had a math teacher that was something else. He was the principal. We had Mr. Peck in all the music. He was good. Bob Day in ag, and he was good. Strict, but good. When I was in high school, there was John Anama, Ace Eldridge, Stuart Rhodes, Dallas Jefferson, Lauren Ivy. Outside of school, whoever was librarian would leave the window to the library unlocked, and we could crawl up on the deals at the end of the school, the old school, and get in the library, and somebody'd unlock it, and we'd go up there, and we had a big jukebox up there, a big Seaberg jukebox. And we'd go up there and throw all our coats over the top of it so there were no lights, and we'd dance. And we used to do that all the time. I think we thought we were getting away with something, but Frank Anama, we'd see him turn around in the parking lot down there. I think he knew what was going on, but we didn't cause any trouble, so that was okay. That was all right. We did have some other deals on Halloween. There was some things that probably shouldn't have gone on, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. And Steve Cameron could tell you about that. Grant Pyra could tell you about that. I'm trying to remember who else was in the back of my pickup when we were driving down Main Street. But there was usually quite a bunch. Mont Roseberry, of course, he was in the middle of all of it. I had no idea what I wanted when I was in high school. I just wanted to get out of high school. Went over to Rick's. Joe and I went at the same time. And I think we both came back after 1 quarter because we hadn't figured out what we want. I went to work. I think that was when I was working for Adamson's, or it was either Adamson's or Noel Pratt, I can't remember which. I did that for a while until I could get enough money I could go ahead and go back again. In fact, I went I went to the 2-year school for 3 years, but it was because I could go so long, I had money enough, and then I'd have to come back and work, and then I'd go back again. But it was, by then I had pretty well decided what I wanted to do, and it was metallurgy, welding, and stuff like that. Until I went down to Utah State in 62 or 63, I can't remember when it was. And I really enjoyed that down there. I was getting ready to go the final year for my degree, and that's when my vision went, and I couldn't do any of that anymore. In fact, the doctor told me I better find something different to do, so I ended up coming home, and I drove a school bus, worked at the cheese factory down there. I did whatever I could find to do. Cut meat for Uncle Don in the grocery store down there. Just whatever I needed to do. And by then I was married, and I was enjoying the kids too at that time. I thought so until after it was the first quarter. After the first quarter, I all I could see that I was doing was spending money on stuff. I wasn't learning what I needed to learn, what I wanted to learn. And that's why I came back and went back to work. When I was a kid, I had asthma, and in those days they didn't have the medications that they have now. And so I either took a flying trip with my mother in the car to get adrenaline, or later, Chris Mania had it here and could take it. But I couldn't play sports. I'd get it, and I'd sit in a chair for 2 weeks at a time because I couldn't lay down. And I've still got that chair that I was sitting in upstairs. And the handles on it have been pretty well carved up. That was where I built my model airplanes, because I've always liked that. And I don't know how many model airplanes. In 1947, I think it was, Pete Centerusa took me up flying in a Marine plane that he got after the war. He bought this Marine, I can't remember what kind it was, but it was fun, and that hooked me on airplanes, and I built lots of model airplanes. When I started flying, and I think I took my first lesson in about 58 or 59, something like that. And then I had to quit for quite a while, and then I started again. And after I went through, 4 different airplanes. And when I had them, I took any kid that wanted to fly in town, and I took them up. All they had to have was their parents' signature that it was okay, and I would take them flying. Except in the fall of the year, about elk hunting or deer hunting season, and the kids were put on a back burner, and there was an adult, and we went out. You could fly one day and they could hunt the next day, so we did that an awful lot, and I have no idea how many kids and how many adults I took up, just for the fun of it, because they enjoyed it. Many of them, it was for a lot of times with the kids. They really liked it, so I knew what it was like, and then I took them up. Zach, my grandson, one of my grandsons, started flying with me when he was about 3 years old. And I noticed the first time I took him flying that as I moved the controls, he was looking out on the wings and he could see things moving. So I says, well, do you want to fly the plane? And, well, yeah. And so we played around like that a time or two, and I just gave him the controls, and he did the flying. And we was coming down out of Muldoon one day, and And I can't remember who it was up there came to town and says, "What were you doing up there? You were going up and down and up and down." And I says, "Well, Zach was doing that." And he liked that. He liked that feeling when he went up and down, so that's what we were doing. And then he flew with me for a long time. I always took off and landed, but I'll tell you, he was ready to take the controls as quick as I got off the ground. He was ready to go. Yeah, later on, like I say, there was a lot of people that liked it, and we've got a good airport here. It's one of the best, in fact, the smoothest and one of the best grass strips around. I don't know where you'd get a better one. And we started the fly-in for the fire and rescue. I used to be a firefighter for years. And then it got to the point that they were afraid I was going to fall off the truck, so I became a fire commissioner. And that was about when I started the fly-ins down here. And I think the first year we just had a few, and then we had a few more, and I think the most we ever had was, 40 or 50 altogether. And they flew in from everywhere. We've had them out of Utah, Montana, eastern Idaho, western Idaho, clear up into Washington and Oregon. We had a guy fly in here 2 or 3 years ago that had left early that morning from someplace over in Washington to get here for the fly-in. But everybody got together, and it was people that had been flying, and they'd see each other maybe once a year, but it'd be down here on this grass strip. The fire department really served a good breakfast down here. Then it was reasonable. And that gave us a chance to gather up. We go up to Stanley for breakfast, and Smiley Creek, Gooding, Fairfield, Jackpot once in a while, Pocatello, Idaho Falls, just an excuse to get out. It was a way to relax, I guess. Well, you had to go to the mountains. You had to see what was going on up in the mountains. And then I flew with a lot of the guys, other guys that were friends, and they had planes, and we'd fly theirs, and then we'd fly ours, and it was just a lot of my life. The milk trucks is where when I came back from college and couldn't do that, why I worked for a while. I worked at the cheese factory for a while, and then we went. I bought my first truck from Al Taylor. He sold me a can truck, and I hauled cans around here for quite some time. Everybody milked a few cows. I had 3 different trucks running. One went to Fish Creek, one went to South Carey, and then I had one that I went to Bellevue with. And it was just, like I say, everybody had a few cows, and that was the grocery money. And I was trying to think how far I went out to Fish Creek. I think to Edwards's, to Miff and Katie Sweat's. Out that way, and up north, I think the farthest one was Lowell Meekum, going that way. But I went clear up above Haley, and that was a route that my dad had way back when, before the war. And I used to ride with him on that truck. I guess that milk hauling must have stuck or something. I had to go do that. But I don't know how many I had over on the other side of the hill. Haley and Bellevue and Gannett and Baseline, everything over there. The 10-gallon cans, they weighed a little over 100 pounds. Then we had to throw them in the truck, and we double-decked. And I had pretty good luck, except I can remember one time, and that was up at Jim Hurst's in Bellevue. And I didn't get the lid slammed down like I should. And when you had to swing them up to get them on the second deck, they were out pretty well level to you. Well, I took a bath, a real bath. The only time I think I ever did that, from then on, I was sure that I slammed down the lid. And then I bought a bulk route from Gale Park, and I started hauling the bulk milk up here and over the hill. I went both ways. And then I started going into Richfield. Then I had more guys I had a bunch of guys worked for me. Dick Payne, Ray Sparks, Eddie Green. I just can't remember all of them. But then I got Jerry Weaver. I know he was just out of high school. I nearly had to adopt him in order to get insurance on him. We finally set it up, and Jerry was with me as long as I had the trucks. And the boys, my 3 boys, all drove milk trucks. They all, I don't know how many years of milk hauling they did. Richard is still hauling milk. Still got cattle out at the ranch, beef cattle. No more milk cows. When we had the milk cows out there, we had an old bull, and either David or Mike, whichever one it was, had to go down and get the cows and bring them up. They'd crawl on that old bull and ride him all the way up to the barn behind the cows. And then when they got to the cottonwood trees there by the barn, he'd scrape them off on the. I mean, it was standard. I mean, it was like a game for him too, I think. But it was always entertainment. Then after Dad passed, we had to move all the cows in here. We couldn't do all that running around because we still had the milk trucks and the boys were working. And before we got through, when we finally got going, we had 4 or 5 bulk trucks. The guy that owns Ballard Cheese in Gooding, and they make good cheese, he drove for me, Steve Ballard. And he drove for me, and then he went and made cheese. And then when he needed the vats and stuff, he got the stuff from our milk house up here when he was getting started with his cheese company down there. And he kept one truck right there in his yard. Yeah, well, yeah, it kept John Adamson busy down here, just keeping him running. And then I went to Avonmore. It was Ward's cheese in the beginning. Tom Kalangi owned it. And it was Ward's cheese. It was Ward's, and then Tom Kalangi bought Ward's out. I think he kept the Ward's name. Yeah, he did, because it's still on the plant down here. And then he sold out to Avonmore. I don't remember when that was for sure, but I drove for him. I drove for Avonmore. And I drove for Glambia, and the boys did. And David went out. Well, Mike went out first, and then David, and Richard still hauls for him. When I had the stroke, I had to quit. So I quit hauling several years ago. I can't remember when. I always had to have a fast car. We had a couple of drag strips here, one out Fish Creek and one down south of town, and we always had to have them. I had a big 6-banger Honda motorcycle. It was the year that Honda won the Baja race with this particular bike this size. And the next year they detuned this because it was way too much horsepower to put in a motorcycle. And I had that for about a year and a half until one of the boys, and I think it was Richard, and I were out here. She was out of town, and as soon as she was out of town, I'd load up one of the boys and we'd go riding. And she was out of town. Well, she came home too dang soon. And I was out here outside of the house. We'd just come in, and whoever it was, they told her that's not Dad's, that's mine. So, and it didn't work. She found out about it. I always enjoyed hiding stuff. The only thing I couldn't hide from her was the airplane. It was only one day, my first airplane. I'd had it one day. And she came in and, when are you going to tell me about the airplane? So I don't remember which plane that was, because I had several. When I was working with John down there at the shop, why, we were both volunteer firemen, and the fire truck was down there. If we were in the shop, we was working on something, when the whistle went off, we had a phone here in the house that was a fire phone, and we could set the siren off from here. There was about 6 or 8 of us here in town that had them. But John and I would be working in the shop down there, and the deal would go off, and especially when things got dry. And whatever we doing, you dropped it. We didn't take time to lock things up. I guess you didn't worry about that in them days. And we'd bail in the fire truck and head out, hoping we had gas in the pumper motor in the back, because some of the kids they needed gas, I guess. So we'd check that regularly in the firehouse to see if it had been siphoned yet. But we went to a lot of fires. They got exciting once in a while. You hit the front door with a hose, and the shells start going off in the house. And everybody had shells, lots of shells in their house. And I can only remember a couple of times that it got really scary. That's one of the things that we didn't have anything in the way of fire equipment. And the way in clothing and stuff like that. I mean, whatever you had on your shop and shop coveralls or whatever it was, that's what you went in. And it was just a good idea to put all this stuff together with the fire and rescue, getting that, because I remember when the whole EMT deal was a van sitting down in front of the cheese factory, a white van, and it had everything we had in that we needed at that time. And that's really improved, really gotten better. Plus all the fire equipment has gotten better too. I was going after my degree, and we had rented a place, and it lasted about 5 or 10 days, maybe something like that, and I got this eye infection, and I ended up in the hospital down in Twin. And they fought it for quite a while, and the doctor said, you better find something else to do, because your vision's not going to be that good. And that was when I came back here and started back mechanicking with John again. It didn't get any better. The one eye's not that good. The other one I can still see out of pretty good. Good enough to fly. In 1965, I think it was, LaVon and I got married. And she's been the one that's kept me going. She keeps things straightened out. She has worked with the city for a long time. The last few years, I guess I've been her problem, trying to keep me on the straight and narrow, and be sure I take my medication. But I don't know what I'd have done without her. I just don't know. And the boys, they've been backbone for me too. And she's kept the boys on the straight and narrow. Mom always used to say she had the fastest tennis shoe in the West. She could have it off and be spatting them before they knew that she'd slipped it off. And we had a lot of the old teepee. We had a lot of fun. A lot of the young people who are old people now used to play pool in the pool room upstairs, and we'd have the lawns out in front of the house with people. They'd come in here and get something to eat, and they'd go out and sit on the grass and have lunch. We even had the governor. I'm trying to remember which governor it was that come in to eat. He and his daughters and his wife. And I forgot about that. That was funny. He came in and in the official car out there with the seal on the side, come in and ordered dinner. And some other people came in, and I says, well, we've never stopped here before, but we figured if it's good enough for the governor, we can probably eat here too. I remember one time we had a bunch came in a I can't remember whether they were in a great big van or what they were in, but there was quite a few of them, and they wanted something to eat. And Levon says, yep, I'll feed you, but you're going to have to do something for it. They says, what do you have to do? She says, mow this place. And that meant the lot and the other lot. And they says, yep, we will. But well, you've only got one more. And I said, we can borrow some. And they got mowers from the neighbors, and they had a ball mowing all the lawn. And then afterwards we had a big feed for them. And it must have been 10 or 11 o'clock at night when they finally left. We'd just sit out there and gabbed. And we had a lot of people like that. Well, we had a lot of people like that anyway, because we'd get snowed in here in town, and I'd bring people, truck drivers and stuff like that, to the house. We had rooms upstairs, and that we always had a place. And there's an awful lot of strangers who spent the night here, and we had a lot of gabbing. But the teepee was it was a good gathering place for a lot of the kids. They'd be here and they'd be upstairs, and there was a restroom up there. We had the pool table up there, and then this down here, the booths and stuff like that. And we would end up with a gathering as much as anything else, until they got the insurance so bad that we had to insure the whole house because it was connected to the cafe, and we couldn't afford it anymore, so we had to give that up. And I think that was when I had one extra milk truck that needed to go to Richfield. So I told Levon, I says, you need to haul milk. And she hauled for Rod Pridmore in Richfield, and I think it was Ross Peck's that she'd pick up. And that didn't last too long. I believe that was about the time that's when she went to work for Judge Kramer up in Haley. So then I had to find somebody to drive her truck. If they want to go to college, go the first year, and you got to get your basics anyway. If not, if they need a little breather, you might just take on a real job for minimum wage. But it'll give you an idea of what you can have and what you can be. And there are a lot of things you can do. Just being fair and doing something and doing whatever it is well. Something you'd be proud to put your name on. Whatever you were doing, I can't see people that all they care about is the money. It doesn't matter what they're doing, or it doesn't matter to take pride in something that they're doing. That's important. That's as important as the money. You got to have the money for a living. Having something that you're proud of, an accomplishment, is really important. I'm Paul Olsen. I graduated proudly from Carey High School.